one as well, but a couple of bits in between. Right, and stuff. Long day. Yeah, very long. The meeting tonight? Not that person himself, but we have another call sharing a load of people.
Yeah, there's a good meeting all the time.
Well, there's the chair.
Another 12 months. Or another 5 years.
Take a seat.
Yeah, first I've moved.
Hello, would you like to take a seat anywhere up here? All right.
About 2-3 hours from here, that'll be a record.
Well, we say it's actually sets the precedent.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
The battery's gone on that, Rob. The battery's gone on that.
On the keyboard.
Yeah.
Oh, you're over that side and back on
It is.
office on the other side. Oh, all right. Squeeze in there all the way to the top in front of the phone. Go at the top? Yes. Still there's yeah, hello, public. Yes, yeah, right at the top. Thank you. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd rather listen to something than listen to them.
Hello. You just want to sit here. You want to sit and listen? Yeah. David. Yeah.
Stay right. Full house.
I was just checking if anybody else has received this.
afternoon, everybody. Another properly required say, 2 at 9 o'clock, so 2 minutes past. My name is Steve Hudson, I'm chair of the security committee. Before we start, we'll go through the housekeeping procedures. This information is provided for your safety and comfort whilst you are in this building. This information is provided for your safety and comfort whilst you are in this building. All council offices and entrances to them are designated on spot.
Still can't hear you.
No. Sorry?
Can't hear you.
Right. All council offices and entrances to them are designated no smoking areas. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
The building fire alarms are routinely tested regularly at approximately 10 a.m. on Monday morning. There are no other planned alarm accidents at the time. In the event of alarm sounding, you must evacuate this room as quickly as possible using the nearest available marked fire exits and congregate on 2 minutes after you come to the main Guildhall reception. If it is safe to do so, you should evacuate through the main doors of the meeting room and leave that Guildhall reception doors. Lifts are not to be used during the evacuation. In any case, when people stairs if an issue for them to be involved with the council officer at the meeting, suitable arrangements will be made safe. You are also requested to turn the mobile devices and use the silence operation or turn them off if it is not possible to silence them during the Thank you for your cooperation. Okay, apologies for absence. I don't think there's anybody from the scrutiny committee listening. Declarations of personal interest. Mark?
Unfortunately, I'm going to declare a personal and prejudicial interest. I'm going to have to leave the room with the full
Seats at the top.
I'm sure it's advice. I'm prepared that I will leave.
Right. Item number 3, calling the executive board decision to choose the 11th of February relating to the leisure review. I'm going to go through the procedures first before we start. This calling procedure is that we're looking at the reasons for the call. We're not looking at the leisure review. The leisure review has already been to a scrutiny committee. What we're looking at is the 14 plus reasons that have been submitted by 6 members of the council, asking that the previous decision of the executive board goes back to them for reconsideration. I believe David, you're the spokesperson.
Yes, that's correct, yes.
David will do an introduction on the calling, on the basis of what they're calling in on, and then I'll pass it over to the lead member and the officer to respond to both what's been said there and also to what's already been circulated to the members. After that's been discussed, it will be the scrutiny committee members only that will be allowed to ask questions of those officers, because it's the scrutiny committee members only who are going to make this decision. Basically, once we've gone through that, depending on how long that takes, I may open it up only for other signatories that aren't on the scrutiny committee. So that's Councillor Prince, Councillor Jeffers, and Councillor Baldwin. But as I say, it depends how it goes on that. After the discussion, we will then take a vote on whether it goes back to the scrutiny committee, the exec board or not. If the vote is not to go back to the exec board, that's the end of the matter. If the vote is to go back to the exec board, I will then want clarification. This committee will have to go with a report to the exec board specifying what reasons it's going back to the exec board out. So if we take it step by step, I'll pass you over to David to start off.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, can I make sure that all members and appropriate officers have had copies of everything I've sent out over the last couple of, well, since last evening, i.e. the 14 points with all the additional information I'll put to each one of those points. The additional letter from the chair of the Health, Eating and Being More Active Strategy Group, and also one other piece of information concerning Dr. Ian Mitchell's people potential transfer of FEK quality. That should be on your email. Okay, starting off. Recording the decision on 14 main points, of which it's going to take a little while, but I will now start going through. First one, Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
And loud enough. So the wife said. The decision was based purely on financial savings rather than evidence-based social needs, national and EU legislation and Welsh Government measures. Now, each local authority and health board in Wales are under a statutory duty to develop and implement a health, social care and wellbeing strategy for the public, which is a key delivery mechanism for bringing sustainable improvement in communities. The strategy should include a range of initiatives and actions for preventative action to improve health, reduce the risk of ill health and continuing care.
Can I interrupt you there, David? Just reading through the 14 pages you sent to members. I mean, we've already got it. I'm assuming all members of the scrutiny committee have had a chance to look at
Has
it.
everyone had it?
Yes, everyone's
Okay.
had it.
Have you all then digested it?
Yes.
Which is more important?
At the end of the day, it was sent out at what time last night?
Have you all digested it? Is
I'm
the
asking
question-
what time you sent the 15 pages out to members.
It was about 8, 9 o'clock, but
They're
again,
supposed to be delivered to members 2 days before the meeting.
well, this is to give you information. I could have just brought it in today and read it through.
Well, you are
Quite happy to.
Well, you are doing that.
Yes, quite happy to, as we are allowed in scrutiny. But no, I thought I'd give you some of you the heads up.
Would it be possible for you to praise it rather than read 14, 15 pages?
Right, I'll praise it very quickly then. So this is all relevant. Now, unlike the last
saying it's not
committee, when we didn't have time to talk go through every point, this is all relevant. Okay? As I said, local authority are under strategic duties to implement certain things. From the health, social care and wellbeing strategy, from the children and young people's plan, the strategic framework for public health in Wales, our healthy future, which works upon the implementation of the All Wales Obesity Pathway. And coupled with that, the Welsh Assembly are already working on to develop a new Active Wales Action Plan, of which we have to take on board as local authorities, and working in partnership with health boards, communities first, environment, private sector, etc. A community sports strategy has been developed by Sports Wales with Welsh Government backing, which again is being passed down and should be included within all strategies. The strategic document, Climbing Higher, Next Steps, produced again by the Welsh Assembly. Strategic direction for the next 20 years. Again, anything that comes down to local authorities in terms of strategic work has to take account of the work that the Welsh Assembly has done. The Play Implementation Plan, again by the Welsh Assembly, the importance of children and play in society. The European Health Report 2012, produced by the World Health Authority, which highlights obesity, cancer and heart disease, which again is backed by European policy and devolved down to government. The White Paper, a strategy for North Wales on nutrition, overweight and obesity, produced by the European Commission, which again highlights the risks and actions needing to be taken to combat those issues. The European Obesity Charter, produced by the World Health Authority, organisation, adopted by all EU members, and the global recommendations on physical activity for health. Evidence from the British Heart Foundation, Macmillan Nurses, Diabetes UK, Communities First. All are key partners, all have relevant information, all information should be included with any sort of strategy. So before undertaking the decision to close, what's the Council's strategy for the future provision of legal services in the county in order to address the physical health and wellbeing needs of its population in accordance with EU, national, regional and local priorities and targets as set out in the numerous strategies and reports listed? That's number one. Number two, consultation process was flawed due to numerous local schools being excluded from consultation and input. On noting that Abergwy County, Devonmore County, Minidol, Garth County Crime Group, Panikai Community Crime Group. Now including that was councillors, local councillors also left out, who impinge upon that Madoc Centre. Councillor Derek Wright, Pat Jessett, myself. Other strategic stakeholders seem to have been left out from the document. North Wales Police, Communities First. The HEB MAOG, which is the group that produced the Healthy Eating and Being More Active strategy that actually underpins the Partnership Delivery Board and so-called council plan. Number 3, the decision will unduly severely affect the health and well-being of the vast local population that use the facilities. I mentioned in the document I've sent you about the epidemic numbers in regards to obesity and type 2 diabetes amongst the population, and a significant increase in cardiovascular problems. The Wrexham branch of the National Autistic Society utilised Plas Collection Centre on a monthly basis. Physical activity interaction is so important to them for their physical and mental well-being and their social development. There is no other facility in the county that's conducive to their needs on entry and exiting the pool. The gentle sloping of the pool allows quick entrance exit. That brings in an issue about evacuation procedures. Plas caters for a wide range of people with disabilities, again, which no other facilities in the county provide, and is fully conversant with the Disability Discrimination Act. I'm just a little bit out there. Number 4, decision will incur unnecessary costs from possible increase in antisocial behaviour, increase in health issues through lack of preventative measures, and infringe upon social cohesion. We've heard concern from the PCSO about the general fear of increase in crime and disorder through the possible closure within that area. The legislature provides a haven for children and young adults, safe, and provides activities fun, and keeps them out of problems and trouble. It provides a distraction. Where again will their energy be dispersed? And what will be the cost to society and the county? Recognise that physical inactivity is one of the leading causes of death in the developed world. And when we're looking in the UK, we're looking at 23% of death through coronary heart disease, 17% colon cancer, 15% diabetes, 13% strokes, 11% breast cancer. All have a cost. Regular exercise prevents and reduces that risk. And information has come from the Miller nurses, from Diabetes UK, and from the Health Authority on that. Without the benefit of added leisure facilities in the south of the county, coupled with a lack of public transport, the decreasing household expenditure, the growing deprivation, the increasing public resources, what will be the cost of society and our population's health, and the cost of the social care budgets if such a valuable service is closed, without a detailed plan and a detailed strategy to address those issues. Number 5, lack of input from partners in health, police and social services and community groups, i.e. Community First, who could have provided extra facts, figures and input into the advantages and disadvantages and the financial implications from the decisions made by the Exec Committee. Now, before I carry on there, I'm just going to quickly read something from Dr. Ian Mitchell, Chief of Clinical Staff at Betsy Cadwallader, who has stated that all Chief Leisure Officers at local health authorities in North Wales has signed up to a compact for health a couple of years ago, which included Wrexham Council. He believes that the action taken by Wrexham Council is reneging on that compact. He further states that Wrexham is one of the few areas in Wales that is delivering upon the GP 14-week referral time for patients to receive treatment through the leisure services system. This is because at present the health service works very closely with leisure and relies on them rather than the high-cost external physio and therapist. He believes it's an absolute travesty that Wrexham Council has taken this decision. The long-term ramifications of this decision will haunt us for many years, and the queue will be at the hospital rather than in leisure centres, and it's cost and pressure.
Chair, can it be moved just to answer that?
Well, can you wait till the end?
Wait till the end, it's just important that people know what happened.
Okay, I don't want to interrupt David's flow.
That's okay. Okay.
I'll try not to be too long. Well, I've got a lot to do.
We've got all day.
Number of health-related services currently operate on Plas: cardiac, cancer, autism, multiple sclerosis. What dialogue has taken place with either of these groups or the local health authority in order for these essential services to be carried on? And where else could they be carried on within the county? I'll try and miss some of it, it's so much here. There's an awful lot of information from the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, which highlights the necessity for physical activity in the integrated care pathway for patients, which again, we should be implementing in partnership with health. How will the integrated care pathway be affected locally with the closure of Plas? What will the impact be in the delivery of the services provided at the centre? Under Community First, the programme to tackle poverty in Wales. Actions lead to the sustainability and well-being of communities and to narrow the economic and health gap between the most deprived and the most affluent. One of the main strategic objectives is a healthier community. How will the objective be achieved in order to tackle the social, health, economic poverty when leisure facilities, which impinge upon the health, social care and well-being strategy, community safety plan, the children and young people's plan, are closed and demolished within the deprived area? Number 6. The decision is contrary to the Equalities Act 2010. There's a bit more there, but I won't read it out. The groups of people who are affected under the Equalities Act are people with physical disabilities of sensory impairment, multiple sclerosis, wheelchair users, circulatory conditions, muscle wasting, autism, and the list goes on. Low income. The possible closure of Plas has increased anxiety amongst those who take the treatment. They find that the Plas pool is the only one that caters for all, and I stress all, their needs. Plas is the only centre that has a specifically designed, accessible lift, allowing for motorised wheelchairs and the carer. Waterwell does not. It's the only publicly run leisure facility that incorporates mixed changing facility, which allows the disabled people, along with their carer, being of mixed sex, to get changed and utilise the services. Number 7. The Executive Committee has given no thought or action regarding newly piloted loan schemes, which was introduced April 2015, to encourage participation in collaboration and different approaches in regards to the provision of leisure services. Now I'll just say that one again. To encourage participation and collaboration and different approaches. Before I go on there, I'll quickly read out something else. We noted 1.2 million for intermediate care, a one-year funding stream has been forthcoming from the Welsh Government. Each local authority has to bid against the local indicative allocation. Local authorities are required to work with their local partners, NHS and third sector in regards to that bid. The Health Board's Associate Chief of Staff for Therapies in Clinical Programme has prepared a list of initiatives which should have been included in that bid. The key component of that bid was well-being and preventative services within the mix of therapies and enablement schemes. Wrexham has an indication of 1.2 million for 1 year. The Wrexham bid has been prepared by Wrexham Department, Council Department, without engagement of partners. The bid itself features some duplication of existing services and has a focus on acute services. There are no preventative services and no money for physical activity within that bid. That current bid also has an underspend of £60,000. And the question to that is, why hasn't that department considered this underspend as transformational funding in order to increase the use of leisure facilities locally, using direct payments or other innovative approaches? Now in Wrexham, the work to increase hydrotherapy resulted in an increase in the use of leisure professionals to support people to swim independently. The cost saving could be significant. The Intermediate Care Fund could be used to bring about greater transformation and closer working between NHS therapies and council leisure. It's been done elsewhere. Why aren't we working in partnership on that? Now, coming back, it was to be introduced next year, announced in October 2013 by Welsh Assembly about the 5 million leisure facilities loan scheme to improve and encourage participation and reducing the burden on NHS, and to ensure that local authorities can invest in facilities allowing savings to be made in future running costs. In addition to that, the Carbon Trust document on sport and leisure, introducing energy saving opportunities for business. Has that been looked at? Number 8. The Exec Committee has given no regard to the strategy for older people in Wales, which is a 10-year plan, focusing on wellbeing, poverty, community engagement and participation.
It's open actually for the response to the lead member. So, I'll pass you on to Councillor Griffiths and possibly alongside.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for that, David. My answers will answer them all, but not necessarily in the same order that you brought them up. That's an old saying from Morecambe and Wales, isn't it? Not necessarily in the same order. Can I first clear one thing that you mentioned from the Health Board? I checked with the Health Board before I come here. I spoke to the Acting Chief Executive, and he has no knowledge whatsoever of the contents of that letter, and that letter does not reflect the work that the Health Board is doing with the local authorities. In fact, he had been to a meeting this morning with local authorities. So he is concerned of where that information has come from, and I've left that in his name, but as his words was, that is not the reflection of the local Health Board. The other one, I do welcome what you're saying and what we should be doing for the people of Wrexham and the Wrexham's plan. But as we know, and as you know, the Wrexham plan is a county-wide plan. I wish we could have a plan for local members and have each ward have their own swimming pool and everything else like this. But the ultimate from this is, and I'll still stay with it, is to get a swimming pool in Wrexham that will be fit for the next 20, 30 or 40 years, that caters for all the abilities what you mentioned in your report. And these have been mentioned in past doing. Nothing has been thrown upon you. This leisure review, as you know, started in 2000, because I've read these papers out before, and I quite wanted to say them again. And that was the leisure review process began in the year 2000. In 2001, the best value process identified the services that could possibly be delivered. And I'm saying again now, in 2003, £150,000 per annum was withdrawn. Sorry, in March 2004, £150,000 per annum was withdrawn by this council. But I have not no reasons for that, and that was from leisure. In 2005, a leisure review project team was established. In 2006, the council agreed a way forward. In 2007, there was a leisure review. In September 2007, there was a report back on the leisure review. And when we say that nobody, this has been thrown upon you, I refute that, David, I'm sorry to say. Can I say we also had a report in April 2012, and we also had a report of the leisure review stage 2 in March 2013. And I have no recollection at any time of then that you raised your concerns, or your colleagues raised any concerns to do with it. And I say that is my recollection. If you have, please give it to me because we'll take it into account with it. Now, if I can, I'll start, Chair, if it's possible to answer. The original ones that were sent to us and the ones that I have the answers for. I will give the answers, and then if any pavilion warrants will, I'm sure, help out with that.
Can't hear.
Could you speak up, please? Or use the microphone?
I think if you look, you will see I've got the microphone.
Try speaking into it.
I'm going to do it, sir.
Could the other gentleman turn his off so it'll work?
Mine doesn't affect that one.
Can you get it working? With the gentleman at the top of the table? will you turn-
Mine being on does not affect that one being on.
Well, we can't hear you.
So we need to hear you, so speak into the mic.
I'm sorry, but if we have any more, I'm going to have to warn the members of the public to sort of refrain at the moment.
We
You're
just
quite-
can't hear you.
Oh, just hang on. You were quiet when Councillor Taylor made the point on there.
He's been loud.
Yeah, but he's sat next to you up there.
He's fine, fine.
Yeah. Right, can we start again? Dave, can you try again?
Thank you, Chair. Can you now hear that?
Yes.
Well done. It starts off saying, we the undersigned believe the following should be considered by the lead member for health and adult social care and the executive board. Me in my position as lead member for adult social care is giving my answers back. It says the decision was based purely on financial savings rather than including evidence based upon health and social needs and national and EU legislation and the Welsh Government measures. The response that I got, the decision was based on the leisure review, and I said how long this has been going on for, which significantly identified that leisure is a discretionary service, but one that contributes significantly towards the achievement of health and well-being objectives in the council plan, as well as sporting excellence as a goal in its own right. The council plan itself reflects national and EU legislations and measures that you refer to. The decision seeks to advance these objectives for the people of the county borough as a whole in the face of a very severe financial position facing the council, with at least £45 million of cuts having to be made over the next 5 years. It recognises the unsustainability costs of operating the leisure service and ageing conditions of the centres in the council's portfolio, and proposes a strategy that will retain most of the facilities, provide a new county-wide facility and result in a sustainable operational model based on an existing leisure trust. If the council does not act now and deliver this strategy, we face the prospect of losing both Plas Madoc and Waterworld, but having no resources to replace either. Not taking this decision now will undermine these health, social needs objectives, associated legislation and national measures to a much greater extent.
So if I could just add to that, Chair, I quite understand the emotion around this issue because it involves the closure of a much valued leisure facility. But we'll be coming back again and again to the issue about what is your strategy for the county borough over the next 30 years, the whole leisure service. What is at risk here is not merely the closure of Plas Madoc, and that is enough. It's the closure of Plas Madoc and Waterworld and having no strategy in place to deal with that eventuality. And that is the decision that you have to make. I don't think there's a single officer or member who would not like to say, well, let's close both and replace them both with brand spanking new buildings. In any other era, that would be very difficult. In this era, it's impossible. You have limited resources available, you have a limited window of opportunity to address that, and this strategy is designed to address both of those issues. So it is a strategy. It's not exclusively focused on Plas Madoc. It's a strategy for both major centres. I wanted to emphasise that point.
Thank you, Lord. Question 2. The consultation process was flawed due to numerous local schools being excluded from the consultation input. My response is the 2 comprehensive consultation exercise was undertaken. In the first instance, the sports consultancy consulted schools which use Plas Madoc Leisure Centre, and that's Moses Lynn, Moses Monid, Rosamedri and Ravin St Mary's. This consultation focused specifically on the extent of their usage, why they chose to use Plas Madoc Leisure Centre over other options, and if they had any, and how they travelled to and from the facility. The schools were also asked what they would do in the event that the centre closed. Other schools were not consulted as they do not use the centre regularly. In the second instance,
Can I ask members of the public and councillors to be quiet and let the lead member answer, please?
It's rubbish then.
I'm sorry, if you carry on without playing, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the meeting. Carry on.
thanks, Jeff. In the second instance, the council consulted the general public and users of the centres through the Reshaping Services consultation in autumn and direct consultation in December 13 and January 14. I ensured that this consultation process was extended to the end of January to make sure that everyone could have their say. While not every person or organisation in the county borough has been consulted, there can be no doubt there has been widespread publicity of the proposed changes and every opportunity to comment, and a very large response rate, greater than for any consultation even on the council's own budget. There can also be no doubt that there is wholesale opposition to the closure of Plas Madoc Leisure Centre for a wide range of reasons, and I do not believe that further consultation will capture any materially different issues that have not already been considered.
If I could add to that specifically in relation to the Healthy Eating and Being More Active outcome group and Community First, as you can imagine, before it came to Executive Board, there was a lot of toing and froing of consultations and emails. But the report itself, at page 8 of the document, referred specifically to the stakeholders who'd been consulted and included the Healthy Eating and Being More Active outcome group. And their responses were included in Appendix 3 of the document. I also reported verbally to Executive Board that I had spoken to the Community First manager for the area, and his emphasis was that the provision in that area around prevention, while to some extent was based inside the facility, was more specifically based around the mugger outside. But I think the central point is we have had wide...
Can I speak on that?
No, sorry.
You're saying something's incorrect.
Wrong.
We are, as I'm saying, if you can imagine any other report that's been to Executive Board that's had more than 60 stakeholder groups and more than 2,000 representations, it is hard to imagine that it's not been widely consulted upon.
Chair, please? Yeah. Number 3. Question number 3 was the decision will unduly severely affect the health and well-being of the vast local population south of Wrexham town and cross-border residents that use the facility. And my response to that is, the review recognises that the closure of Plas Madoc Leisure Centre will impact on some of the current users of this facility. Some will use other facilities, but others will not, and the impact on these were highlighted in the body of the Executive report in Appendix 3 to that report and the Quality Impact Assessment. These impacts will be greatest for those with disabilities who enjoy easy access to the pool, older people and young families. However, these impacts will be mitigated by the availability of alternative leisure venues, both in the county borough and neighbouring areas, and the design of the new county-wide facility to replace Waterwood, and the proposals to allow a local...
Sorry, can you please let the member finish? Right.
I'm not on that.
No. Which member of the public said that? about as long as he tells the truth. And I want to be over there, though. If there's any more, I'll look at which way we can sort of move people out of this room and we can continue the debate without members of the
I
board.
told you, but I didn't say it.
Yeah, well, somebody said it. Rob? No. Oh, we'll see how long it takes as far as we're going on here. Okay.
Thanks, Chair. I think I start where I stopped, I think, but I might go over a couple of words. However, these impacts will be mitigated by the availability of alternative leisure venues, both in the county borough and neighbouring areas, and the design of the new county-wide facility to replace Waterworld, and the proposals to allow a local community enterprise to take over the centre of Plas, or failing that, some of the receipts from the sale of the site will be used to provide a reduced community facility in that area. These impacts will be much greater if the council misses this opportunity to make savings and use them to finance the construction of a new facility, as the council will have insufficient resources to replace Waterworld when it too has to close, leaving the county borough with no major facility. Number 4. The question was, the decision may incur unnecessary costs associated with a possible increase in antisocial behaviour, increase in health issues through lack of preventative and follow-up measures, and infringe upon social cohesion. My response is, this may be true, but again, the council faces this prospect of losing both Plas Madoc and Waterworld, and must act now to take the opportunity to create some, if reduced, county-wide leisure provision into the future. These secondary costs or impacts will be compounded by the county borough loses both of these new facilities, but can be mitigated by the creation of a new facility to service the county as a whole. Number 5. Question was lack of input from partners in health, police and social services and community groups, and in brackets you highlighted community first, who could have provided facts and figures and input into the advantages and positives and disadvantages, negatives, as well as financial implications from the decision made by the exec committee, or the exec board. Response. As outlined in the executive board report, the review involved extensive stakeholder consultation, while the options appraisal and recommendations clearly identified the pros and cons of the different proposals. The Sports Consultancy contacted over 60 organisations with an interest in the Wrexham Leisure Service and portfolio, including clubs, user groups, schools, national governing bodies and other partners, better to understand the leisure portfolio from the widest possible perspective. Written responses were received from 10 strategic stakeholders and 17 user groups. The Sports Consultancy also consulted all 5 of the dual-use schools, 4 of which provided written response. This consultation was conducted using a variety of methods, including email, questionnaires, telephone interviews and face-to-face meetings. Almost half of the 60 stakeholders took the opportunity to comment, but clearly some did not take the opportunity to contribute. In addition, the Council conducted its own consultation process that generated more than 2,000 responses and has written to the key health and education partners.
Yes, so if I can add to this point, it is quite clear that partnership working is a very important aspect of the future of leisure services in the county borough. But what has to occur first is the executive board had to make a strategic decision on which direction it's going in, and that's where we're at now. I made clear in the report and in reporting the report to executive board that we were in dialogue with a variety of education, health and other partners in the county borough about this. But the difficulty always arises when partners like to cooperate but are less prepared to put their hands in their pockets and hand over resources. And I take the point that everyone is making, in both from the Dr. Ian Mitchell, whether he's representing Betsy or not, that this will have an impact. The real question, and I will be repetitive on this, is you need to make a strategic decision about the totality of the leisure service in the county borough, or you don't, the executive board do. And the decision they made had regard to the risks to the whole service of doing nothing now. The risk of straying into dubious analogies. We're like a family that's got two rather aging cars, and we've only got money to have one good car. And are we going to drive the two old cars we've got into the ground and have no money to replace either? Or are we going to take a strategic decision now that says we can buy one car for the future by having to get rid of the two we've already got? But I must emphasise that the dialogue with the partners will be the first and main emphasis of the discussions herein after, because we all have to move from a different model. The model we have at the moment is where, for the best part of 150 years, the councils have provided the services and the local people have paid for them. Because of the financial crisis and the ageing state of our buildings, we have to move to a much different model for the future, where it will be in the form of trusts and enabling communities to run facilities rather than the council providing traditional services.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Just on a second.
Mr. Chair, it's a point of order really. Councillor Dave Taylor wasn't allowed to read out his whole address to the scrutiny committee, yeah? While the lead member is allowed to read out the answers, and it's in fact, it's a double act. You're preventing Councillor Prince from coming in, but you're allowing Lawrence to support the lead member.
The two issues. As far as Councillor David Taylor's response was concerned, members have already been circulated with that response.
Yeah, but I haven't had a chance to read it.
Well, I'm sorry, but you're one of the signatories there, so one would assume that you were sent at the same time as everybody else.
I was.
That's, you know, and to be fair, he went through it very comprehensively on that side. Councillor David Griffiths has not been allowed to respond, and there's nothing in writing from Councillor David Griffiths, so therefore he's going through this to elaborate to the committee the method, the process the executive board have considered on that side. Apart from the fact he's reading the statement out every time, he's not repeating, as far as I know, things that's been said before. The last thing I need to say is I need to read out this notice: disturbance by members of the public. If a member of the public interrupts the proceedings at any meeting, the chair at the meeting shall ask the person concerned to behave properly and shall warn him or her. If the misbehaviour continues, the chair of the meeting shall ask the person concerned to leave the meeting. If the person refuses to leave, the chair of the meeting shall order the person's removal from the meeting. If the disorder continues, and if it is impractical to continue with the meeting, the chair of the meeting shall suspend the meeting temporarily until order can be restored.
Well, I'm surprised you can hear us, because we can't hear you.
Sorry, would you like to leave the meeting now?
No, I wouldn't, I'm stopping you.
Right. Can you ask that gentleman to leave the meeting?
Childish, he can't hear you, man, for God's sake.
But he's another person that can't hear you.
He can't hear you.
Matter of equality. What the gentleman would like to move to a seat here as where we're speaking?
That's more polite.
Okay.
Or maybe you could just stand up, just stand up and maybe stand a bit closer. Why don't you move instead of moving all there?
Well,
I'm sorry, but I'm actually, hang on, Mr. Madoc. I'm sorry, but you're not chairing this meeting. I'm chairing this meeting.
Actually, it's a good analogy about Iceland just said something. You're disenfranchising him from the group because you think he can't hear.
No, I'm not
You should apply
disenfranchising
it
it.
all to the group as a whole. Wrexham as a community.
I'm
Not
sorry,
just
but
one middle of it.
Labour community.
I'm sorry, could you sit down, because the next time you get up to speak like that, I'm going to ask you to leave the meeting.
Thank you.
Right. Can we carry on, please?
Thank you, Chair. And just to go in what the gentleman said, yes, he is quite right. Wrexham is a community and not small place for that. Question number 6. The decision is contrary to the Equality Act 2010, which includes an emphasis on the prevention services and well-being, which enhances the voice of and the control of people using services. Section 149 of the Equality Act 2010 requires public authorities and any other public organisation who carries out functions of a public nature to consider the needs of groups of people with different characteristics, i.e. gender, disability, etc., when delivering or ceasing services. This has not taken place, the question says. My response to it is, an equality impact assessment has been undertaken, informed by consultation with the general public and specialist groups representing those users identified as being at risk and referred to in the Executive Board report. The proposals include measures to mitigate these impacts, principally through the design of a new facility in Wrexham. If the Council, as I've repeated, does not act now to secure some future legislation provision in the county borough, it faces the risk of having no resources to meet the needs of either the general population or those with protected characteristics, as defined by the Act, and therefore no means of mitigating the effects of that closure.
If I can just add in response to the specific question that was raised about the quality impact assessment. The quality impact assessment includes a screening tool which you use in the first instance to see whether you think there's likely to be an effect. And then you go out to consultation and update it and inform the responses. So the initial thoughts were that it wouldn't impact on such and such a group, but then we consulted both the public on it and specifically a number of specialist groups representing different people from different disability groups and others. And that then allowed us to update the impact assessment. The key thing about the impact assessment is we're not denying that this will impact on the community. We're not denying it will have an impact on particular groups within the community. What our objective is to mitigate those impacts. And that comes down to how we are designing the new facility to make it accessible to the disabled users, to mix changing rooms, things of that kind. The real risk to equality is if we lose both facilities.
Thank you, Lawrence. Question 7. The Executive Board has given no thought or action regarding the newly piloted loan scheme which is to be introduced in April 2015 to support local authorities in developing sport and leisure facilities and to encourage participation and collaboration and different approaches in regard to the provision of leisure services. And my response to that is the Executive Board report specifically refers to the loan scheme together with this prospect of seeking support from health and education partners as a potential means of financing the new replacement facility for Waterworld. Investing in the new building is a more sustainable approach than putting much scarce funds into prolonging the life of a facility which is so costly to run and to maintain and which has long past its design life. Question 8. The Exec Board has given no regard to the strategy of older people in Wales, a 10-year action plan which focuses on well-being, poverty, community engagement and participation, which includes health and social inclusion and participation. If Councillor Taylor remember, I took a report to the board just towards the end of the year, the beginning of the year, and we've also had a workshop on our strategy for older people. My response to your question, sorry about that. The Executive Board report does not refer to particular strategies by name, but makes clear that health and well-being are key objectives in the Council plan. The report refers to the likely impacts on older people, and as well as on disabled and young families. In seeking to meet these objectives, the Council has to use its dwindling resources to best effect, and keeping Plas Madoc open will mean that other essential services used by older people will need to be cut more to make up the savings. Without securing a long-term future for any kind of leisure service in the county borough, it will raise people's expectations only to dash them later with the inevitable closure, without replacement of these two main leisure facilities in the county borough. Question 9. The Executive Board has not given due consideration, time and exploration to possible trust models for Plas Madoc, or sought any dialogue with any interested groups or currently operating leisure trusts. The trust model has been explored in detail as part of the first stage of the Sports Consultancy review. The management options appraisal, the Sports Consultancy completed its soft market testing with a number of large trust operators to gauge the level of interest in the management of all of Wrexham's leisure centres, if management was externalised. Plas Madoc Leisure Centre was included with other facilities. The following extracts from the Sports Consulting Consultation conclusions on the management cost appraisals confirm this point. Testing the market has confirmed there is significant appetite from the leisure operator market, including trust operators, to manage Wrexham's facilities. It is not recommended that the council sets up a new leisure trust to manage the facilities. That's our own. This is expensive and time-consuming to achieve and will not deliver the same benefits as contracting with an existing established operator. In terms of strength of financial covenant, ability to take operating risks, and the ability to deliver savings. The recommendations of the options evaluation study advise Plas Madoc should be closed in order to help fund the development of a new leisure centre to serve the county borough as a whole. The option of establishing a new standalone trust to manage Plas Madoc would be contrary to the findings and recommendations obtained in the options evaluation study. In short, anything that requires the council to invest more money in Plas Madoc and Waterworld will prevent it funding new facilities to serve the whole county borough, long after both facilities are closed. However, I have listened carefully to representation on this very point, and the decision made by the Executive Board includes the opportunity for community groups to put forward proposals to take over Plas Madoc, as long as there's no cost to the council, revenue or capital. Furthermore, I have extended the time for expressions of interest, and I'm willing to do that, to move the deadline for the closure, and I mean the closure, the operation costs will end towards the end of April, but I'm prepared to extend the deadline for anything else to the 1st of October. And this extension of time will enable hopefully interesting groups who are seeking to set up a local enterprise or mutual to run Plas Madoc. It also gives the opportunity to explore fully the viability of any such options until the 1st of October. Also, it will allow the local communities time, if they so wish, to consider the option of increasing their community council tax precept as the same as facility.
Committee, in that today we received a letter from an organisation calling itself the Cross Community Working Group, which has been prepared on their behalf by Ken Skates, Matt Roberts, Mike Henshaw and John Galanders from Aval, and Stella Matthews. And that is an initial expression of interest in doing just that. I'm not suggesting it offers an instant solution and everything, waving a paper piece in our time. But it is just a demonstration that that activity is going on at the moment, and we'll be able to look further on that in due course.
Thank you. Question 10. The Executive Board has not undertaken an adequate, thorough risk assessment, analysis or impact assessment before undertaking their decision. The leisure review included a thorough assessment of many options for the running of the leisure service and for the portfolio of leisure facilities that we provide. In addition, a risk assessment was completed and attached to the Executive Board report as Appendix 2, and an equality impact assessment was undertaken and is summarised in that report. There can be no doubt that the pros and cons of the proposal described in these documents were extensively debated in the Scrutiny Committee on the 13th of December and the all-member workshop on the 2nd of February, and in the 3-hour debate on the topic in the Executive Board on the 11th of February. No. Question 11. The Executive Board decision was based upon the review of leisure services and not any county-wide leisure strategy. A strategy underpins a business plan and case when making decisions on service provision, as there is no such strategy, therefore the business case for such a decision is flawed. My response to that is, the sports consultancy recommendations specifically take the form of a long-term strategy for the council to improve and enhance the management and quality of facilities for the residents in the county borough as a whole, while facing the challenges of unprecedented cuts in the resources and an aging portfolio of leisure buildings. The strategy is based on an audit of existing provisions and extensive consultation analysis of future facility needs. Consideration of multiple options and market testing. It provides clear and specific recommendations and the actions for running the service as part of the existing leisure trust and for the rationalisation of the facilities, including the creation of the state-of-the-art leisure facility to service Wrexham County Borough as a whole.
If I could just add here, there was obviously some discussion about meeting all the objectives of the other strategies that exist and that the council operates. I think, though, we have to be realistic about this. Unless we significantly change our operating model, we will not be able to afford to deliver on every single objective that exists in every strategy that the council may have. We obviously want to achieve those objectives, but we've got to start doing it in different ways. Because realistically, if this is a discretionary service and it's difficult to make this cut, think of what will happen when we have to make cuts from mandatory services. We have to provide these things in a completely different way. I re-emphasise, since it was mentioned at this point, about the consultation with the Healthy Eating, etc. group, and the letter that's been sent out. That was dated the 31st of January. It was reported to Executive Forward. But as I mentioned, there were toing and froings of the reports, and we specifically list that group at 5.3 in the reports itself.
Thank you for that one. Number 12. The question was the decision to close a leisure facility within an area containing two communities and next to a World Heritage site goes against the community first strategy and its goals and targets, as well as the destination management plan devised by the Wrexham County Borough Council. My response to that is, the council, and it really is between a rock and a hard place, it does not have the necessary resources to maintain its existing leisure centres or to provide for replacement buildings that will secure a future for leisure in the county borough. If it does not act now, it faces the prospect of losing both Plas Madoc and Waterworld and having no resources to replace either. In the meantime, we are spending money on old buildings while making a large operating deficit to the tune of £2.49 for every visit made to the centre. Waterworld is also adjacent to a community first area and one that has a much larger population than Plas Madoc, and losing both centres will have even a larger impact. 13. Question, the decision to close and demolish Plas Madoc Leisure Centre is contrary to the ethos of the Wrexham plan and the goals and targets of the individual partnership delivery boards. And my response is, I would refer you to my response to question 12, but add that more than £45 million in cuts that we have to make themselves contrary to that ethos that I have followed in all my years in elected councillor. But I have had to face this reality and support an unpopular decision to avoid the people of the county borough having no major facility at all. This decision secures a future for leisure by closing old and costly buildings and replacing them with a facility of which we can all be proud of. 14. The exec board on reaching their decision have not taken into account any of the following acts, articles, frameworks and policies relating to children and play when taking their decision. The response is the Executive Board has taken into account the legislation related to and impacting upon the leisure review, insofar as it relates to local authorities. The majority of the references set out below are requirements placed on ministers and the Welsh Government as set out below. And do you wish me to go through them? They're the ones that Equality Act 2010. The Equality Act legally protects people from discrimination in the workplace and in the wider society. It replaces previous anti-discrimination legislation, and the Act is concerned with discrimination in respect of specific protected characteristics: pregnancy and maternity, age, disability, gender assignment, marriage, civil partnerships, race, religion, sovereignty, sex, sexual orientation. It sets out the different ways in which unlawful treats some people. The Equality and Human Rights Commission has statutory remit to promote and monitor human rights and to protect and enforce and promote equality across the protected characteristics. The Council has undertaken an equality impact assessment to ensure that equality and human rights issues have been consciously considered throughout the decision-making process. This leisure review was impact assessed between October 2013 and February 2014, being updated in response to consultation with the relevant affected parties. as we referred to in Appendix 3 of the report. The provisions of the Equality Act, as well as issues concerning poverty and Welsh language, have accordingly been taken into account. There's quite a few others, if you want me to go through, I will, but I'm very conscious that you say I'm holding the block before I want to say to that. But it is, and most of them are to do with the Welsh Government and what they're imposed with.
Amendments happy to source if there's any specifics on those.
I can send them out to members if they so wish. Yeah.
Maybe you wanted to say something.
Can I just finish off by saying that when Councillor Taylor mentioned about the audit report, I do want to make sure that people do it, but the audit report is 2006, I think. It's 8 years old. And just to point out that, yes, it's 2000, Audit Commission's report dated June 2006. We are now 2014 and in a different world. It can be a live document, unless I've asked if we can do it with that. But I will also say to yourself that you yourselves are part of this council and due to make the changes as well. No.
David, did you just want to?
Quickly before you open it to the floor, Chair, a couple of points. First of all, about the schools and the schools listed in that report. But that's because they were told about a year ago they can't use Plasmatic and they have to use elsewhere. They would like to use Plasmatic, but they can't by the Bar Council. Second point, quickly, there's a strategy which comes across as a, and we'll talk about as a review, not a strategy. If it's a strategy, then obviously we're giving all our strategies to outside organisations where we should be actually looking at strategies and incorporating strategies across all other strategies being in corporate. Thirdly, under the consultation that's taken place by the sports consultancy, there was no question or inference at all highlighting the closure of Plasmatic. In fact, the opposite. And quickly, I should quickly read from the chair of the Hember group that produced the strategy of which underpins the Partnership Delivery Report and Council Plan. And she stated, and it's left too long, I said, on the 29th of January, I would have expected more weight to be attached to a response from a multi-agency partnership made up of professionals working together to increase the levels of physical activity and the reduction of obesity within the local population. We see no reference at all in either the scrutiny report or the consultant's report summary of the comments we submitted. Further to that, the question relates to the strategy review to establish a long-term plan for the following facilities and delivery and improvement community leisure services for Wrexham Council. It gave no indication that some of the facilities may face closure as a result of the consultation, and in fact implies the opposite. A subsequent email from the consultant on the 17th of June with a set of questions and a response was requested by the 24th of June. 7 days. Again, the questions do not suggest any facility may be selected for closure, and again, the opposite is implied. Now that's from a multi-agency who underpin our Wrexham plan.
Okay, before we move on to that.
That's it, thank you.
Yeah, before we move on to that, you've made an accusation that an officer of this authority, an officer of this, right, okay. Right, there we go, can you hear that? Right, okay. Right. I'd like you to inform the Chief Executive of the officer of the authority who informed those 4 schools that they couldn't use Plasmatic. Because you made an accusation here in public meeting that somebody, and you replied an officer, made this one there. So I'd be very, very sure.
What I've implied is the Wrexham Council.
Yeah, well, who on Wrexham Council?
I was supposed somebody from education.
I'm sorry,
I am a governor of the school.
like
I am a governor of the school, and I've been told by the head of that school that they were told they had to use church, they cannot use Plasmatic. That's an added cost.
Okay, well, let's not go into the details, but as
So,
I say,
I just told you.
I would urge you to, if you're making accusations like that about the council, then you
That wasn't an accusation. I believe I made a statement.
all right, well, if you're making statements like that, you need to be
I
able to
don't
back
accuse.
that statement
It's a
up.
statement.
You need to back
It's
that
different.
statement up.
Please be careful of words.
Sorry, as I've allowed Councillor Taylor to respond, I was just going to ask the other two to.
Can I again go back to an executive report on March 2013 that all councillors would have had, and stated quite clearly in 4.4, an internal leisure service commission review was completed in May 2012 and recommended to the senior leadership team that the service continues to be delivered in-house, but to close Plas Madoc Leisure Centre to achieve the savings and to use them to fund a new facility to replace Rhosddu. And I'm repeating myself, this went out to all councillors for the 12th of March executive board meeting, and we are now 1 year down the line when they say they don't know nothing about it.
Okay, right.
Sorry. Yeah, but the key issue here is, what did the executive board know at the point of making their decision? They knew it was a proposed strategy because that is what Appendix 1 says, leisure strategy. So we commissioned this group to propose a strategy for the operation of the leisure service and for the running of the portfolio, including whether it needed rationalisation or whatever. They had the information on the consultation. It was the consultation undertaken by the sports consultancy and also the consultation undertaken by the council. There can be no doubt that there is not a living soul in Wrexham who did not know that Plas Madoc was up for closure and had an opportunity to comment on it, not least because the lead member extended that period to the end of January. So there was every opportunity for any group to make their representations known. And the third thing is, we've now referred to the letter from the Healthy Eating Being More Active Board 3 times, and I can only re-emphasise that that letter came in before the Executive Board, and the Executive Board report was updated to include it.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll pass to the members of the scrutiny committee. We'll start with Alvon and Derek. How many Alvon?
One of the points that was made by Dave in undermining the audit report for 2006, I was 18 years old, yeah? It says on page 6, when market testing had taken place, it was poorly managed and focused on financial criteria rather than outcome for the community. Most employ consultants in the appraisal process, but the benefit is lost where councils limit the range of options to be assessed. Well, we now seem to be denying that, but if my recollection serves me right, and perhaps Lawrence can confirm this, when this tender first went out to the sports consultancy, there was a clause there that part of their remuneration would be 10% of the savings that they would make. Now, if that's not limiting your options to all but one, and that is to outsource the service, then I don't know what is. It was only as a result of representations by myself and other councillors that that clause in that tender was removed.
Alvon, can I just ask clarification? Which of the 14 points that are on the thing
Well,
does this refer to?
It's talking about the audit report that they was allowed to present that the lead member has responded to.
So you linked it into the audit bit of that report?
I'm linking to that, yeah.
The first point to say is that the consultants were appointed to look at the widest possible range of issues, which is about how you run a leisure service and what form that leisure service takes. So it covered both things like operation and also things like how many facilities you have, what they provide, how that relates to needs and demands in the county borough. So they're not fettered or put in any particular direction or said or asked to find a single solution and then justify why they'd come up with that solution. They are a professional outfit, and we have employed them, and they have presented their findings to now probably 4 member meetings to explain them. Your point about the original tender obviously relates to this leaked extract from a confidential item that was in the press recently. The original tender requirements included a provision for making supplementary savings on top of the diagnostic part of the review. But that was withdrawn following the first initial evaluation, in that it was impossible to work out whether those companies would generate those kinds of savings. So we wrote to the 4 companies who submitted tenders, telling them that the contracts would now be based purely on a fixed base contract, and there would be no other additional payments on top of that. So it is a red herring. It doesn't relate to the issues that were before the board, and it has been dealt with, and in fact it is incorrect.
I mean, there's something to be clarified on the freedom of information request that's been sent in anyway on that. Okay? Derek, then Dana.
Thanks, Chair. Before I make my points on 3 items of the report, or on Dave's carving, could I ask for a point of clarification on the resolution item 2, where Dave said now the time period has been extended from the 30th of June to the 1st of October. Does that need to go back to Executive Board anyway? Because it's a change in a resolution which was agreed at Executive Board.
Okay.
It's in direct response to your request. Well, and I said at the time I'd have to go to Exec Board. I just felt it was an opportunity to say it now here.
Thanks very much, David. It's just, is this a waste of time? Because if it's going back to Exec Board, do we need to itemise everything that we disagree with?
Okay, well, we'll leave that to slightly down the discussion. Okay, Dana?
Thanks, Chair. I haven't finished yet.
Oh, sorry.
I'd like to agree with Dave on 3 points of the report that he put forward. On item 2, I also believe that consultation wasn't adequate. As Lawrence said, there's going to be some very difficult decisions that are going to have to be made over the coming years, this being the first one. And if we haven't got this one right, then surely we don't have much chance of getting the others right unless we learn by our own mistakes and admit them. And I do believe, as Dave said, schools in mine and Dave's ward, when consulted, Akrabai Primary for one does use Plas Leisure Centre for its swimming lessons and was not consulted. I did email Steve Bailey and Lawrence on this, and also I do believe that the councillors who had schools in their wards, such as myself, Dave, Pat and Dana, should have been at the workshop, and we were ignored or not invited to attend and knew nothing about it until the information reports come out. On item 9, I now do believe that enough time hasn't been given to set up a trust in the report. I know Dave and the officers and the Exec Board have agreed to different extensions, but it would be better if we could keep the leisure centre open, even if it's at a reduced rate, so we don't lose the schools and the other people, the present customers. And on item 12, on the Welsh Index of Multiple Deprivation, Plas Madoc scored 10%. On every one of the 7 scores, they scored 10%. The one that they didn't score 10% on, they got 20%, and that was on environment, because they've got a leisure centre in there on the estate. So therefore, if you take that away, they'll go up to a maximum score of 70. At present, they are 65. Other areas, like Kevin, the neighbouring ward, which I represent, are down to as low as 30. And that is the difference between Plas Madoc and what you will do to them. It could go now up the scale of deprivation, be challenging the likes of the ward in Caerphilly and Kaya Park as being the most deprived area in Wales. Thank you, Chair.
Do you want to come back on that?
I have to accept what you're saying, Derek, but it does remove the fact that Plas Madoc is cost an absolute fortune to keep open. If we don't do anything now with Plas Madoc and Wrexham, we will lose the facilities of both areas. I accept what you're saying, but it doesn't remove the fact. We've got the 45 million deficit with us, and we've got two ageing facilities that need to be looked at to take us to the next 20, 30 or 40 years.
Down then Michael Morris.
Thank you, Chair. Just point 7, sorry. Point 7, what avenues have been explored regarding different schemes? I know the letter that we've had in from the Dr. Mitchell, the source is questionable, But I just want to pick up that point about the underspend and whether we've looked at, you know, different ways of funding. Because yes, we've all accepted the facilities are ageing, but, you know, because we've had some big lottery funding and, you know, various other fundings. So I just want to know what's been directed in Plas Madoc, if any, and whether a bid's been made for Plas Madoc before now, because there's been talk about the wave machine and different things. So what have we proactively done to stop this stay happening? That's one question.
The point I made, and this is when you're assessing whether the executive board had the information, we're not reconsidering the proposal by this committee. What the information that the executive board had was the investment that had gone on into Plas Madoc over recent years, and the significant reduction in the operating deficit. It had gone down from 700,000 to 500,000. Specific questions were asked about how we marketed that, and we spoke about we've appointed a marketing officer, and I think all the members praised the work of the officers who work and the staff who work at Plas Madoc and other centres for all their hard work in trying to achieve that. The strategic decision for you, though, is whether you seek additional funds to invest in the new facility, or you seek additional funds to invest into ageing facilities.
Yeah.
Because if you invest in those facilities, eventually they'll have to close. They can't last forever. They will have to close. And in the meantime, they are costing you an arm and a leg to provide them on a daily basis. Every person that goes in there, we as a council are effectively giving them £2.49 of council tax money.
Chair, can you answer the public?
Sorry, can you please answer, please? Sorry,
With regard to the £60,000, I have no knowledge on that specifically. I can get you that information separately, but I don't think it's pertinent to the overall issue. We make an operating deficit of £540,000 just by keeping the building in its current state. To bring it up to any kind of standard, you're talking about significant sums of money, and putting £60,000 into that would be a pinprick.
Sorry, yes.
Can I just, sorry Dan, I just want to reiterate that the letter that's come from the Health Board is not sustained by the Health Board. It is not their view. They are not getting involved in any political thing, but in fact they are working with us now, and always have been, on future provision of facilities in Wrexham that affects people's health. They've never been no different. So they're at a mess as why these words have been included in that report. But it's unsubstantiated report. It's third hand, so you put whatever weight you wish to.
It's just making sure that all financial avenues have been explored as well. Looking at the point 10 with the risk assessment, there's been a lot of talk from the lead member and from the officer about what I call the new water world and the investment in that, and that would negate a lot of the risks. But obviously that decision's not been made yet, has it, on whether we actually invest the 11.9 million into a new facility, and that's not been budgeted for or anything.
Just come back to you asked me this the other night. You asked me the same thing the other night, and I said to you the same the other night, and it's the same question. We can't start the process until it's been executed by the exec board. If you had not had this call in, we will be further down the road. We have to go by due process, and we're doing it. To have a strategy, I really don't understand how people say they haven't. Just read the reports and you'll see the strategy. If you're saying you're looking to have a new facility within Wrexham, surely that forms part of a strategy. It's not a wish list, it's something that we want to do. I've seen a report where the officer has been criticised because he said he can't promise there's going to be one. As you know, as a council and everyone who's around you, officers can't make that decision because we are subject to change. And we may say at a later date, not us, but replacements or whatever, we'll say, no, we're not going to have it. You know, so that's why. But I've said it quite clear. As long as I'm a lead member, that's what I'm going to pursue. Because I truly believe that Wrexham needs a facility that's going to take them into the next 20, 30 or 40 years. And I'm quite happy if you put your hand on heart and say that Wrexham Baths will take us that far, and so will Plas. Okay now.
Any more questions there? Okay. Michael Morris.
Thank you, Chair. I looked at the 14 reasons and I came here today with an open mind in terms of how I would vote. But I also attended the executive board a couple of weeks ago, primarily to make a case for the 32 public transport routes which are under threat, rather than Plas Madoc, I must admit. In terms of the 14 points that's put forward, I think they can certainly be condensed into 7, because number 1, where it talks about financial savings and evidence-based health social needs, that picks up numbers 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and so on, because it's all encompassing as number 1. So in that sense, that's one issue. I think the answer I've been given, I mean, you know, I knew anyway, whatever is said in terms of the strategies from health and social well-being and all the sort of noises that go with that, at the end of the day, this is not a statutory provision, it's discretionary, and therefore we don't have to provide it. That's the bottom line. Whether we like it or not, whether it's palatable or not, that's the bottom line. The one that concerned me most in terms of calling, and David's partly answered, but I wanted more clarification on the Chair, is number 9, in terms of the time given for establishing either a community trust or whatever to take it over. And now we hear today that, subject to the executive board agreeing, which there shouldn't be a difficulty with, from the members' point of view, that will be extended to October from June. But it does cover numbers 2 and 3 of the executive board resolution, really. Could the lead member or the officer clarify for me the time frame? I mean, are we talking about still retaining the closure earlier than the decommissioning? Because I think that's important. There is the issue there of once you've closed something, it's gone forever, basically, because your client base move.
Opposition. I think it's, well, it's unanimous. Right, thank you. Rob, you want to say something? Well, I mean, basically that's the end of it. That's why. And I'm not quite sure what you're going on with.
Isn't it called that?
Yeah, it's called back in.
Not everyone voted.
Yeah, one listening. Thanks very much for your attendance.